Hi everyone, this is Kumar Dadatran, joined by Jolly Rajan
Hello,
for our
guys.
17th episode of the Agile Shorts. It's surprising that we've gotten 17 of these already.
I know. I didn't think this is gonna keep going when we started, and it's been a good ride. Come on.
Yeah, it's been really good. So, what are we talking about today?
Let's talk about Scrum Mastery, for lack of a better word. I think that word has kind of percolated into the community, so we might as well go with that. The struggles that the Scrum Masters are facing these days, and what we could focus on to make their life a little bit better. It's not a magic fix, but I think if you internalize it over a period of time, you can improve how you do your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, are there things that you're seeing in the marketplace? I mean, we're both sort of coaches working with, in different client organizations, and what do you see in terms of Scrum Masters and the Scrum Masters that you work with and deal with?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that Scrum Masters are dealing with today is that there has been a kind of a transition phase, or at least a perceived transition phase, because between project management and Scrum Mastery, right? And many Scrum Masters have come from the project management world, where their job was to really worry about the day to day, the
Right.
daily in and outs of how the project is run. And that kind of has carried over into the Scrum Mastering world. And that has given rise to some problems that we didn't really think about when we actually defined the role. As they are making that transition, there are two problems. One is many of them are used to that day to day work.
Hmm.
Second is the expectation from them is also to worry about that day to day work, right? The expectations from their leaders who are new to the Scrum Master role as well. And the senior leadership who see them as people who have to take care of that. So I think there is that conflict kind of brewing. At least many of the Scrum Masters are recognizing it, which is a good thing. But in the ecosystem, this is going to be a bigger problem down the line.
Yeah, I see that, but I see it manifested a little differently. That sort of these Scrum Masters are, in many ways, commoditized roles, right? It's like, oh, we are doing Scrum now, or we're have to move to Agile, and let's get a bunch of Scrum Masters, just train up a couple of a bunch of Scrum Masters, but then put them on a lot of teams, right? So teams, especially new teams, it's hard for a Scrum Master to really do their job in coaching and mentoring and guiding and teaching the team about the nuances of Scrum when they have five or four other teams to deal with, and so the day to day becomes sort of almost inevitable. They're just struggling to make it through the day and make it to the next day, which leaves really little time for continuous improvement, for any sort of a data-driven approach to help teams improve their lot in life, right?
Yeah, 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 and that data-driven approach is I am seeing the same thing. What is the important data to focus on? I mean, everyone talks about, hey, what is the velocity over a period of time? That's a very common statistics that everyone talks about. They bring up the chart. They talk about, hey, look at this. We are going up and going down. But that introspection, which leads to continuous improvement, is not really using that data. Why is it happening this way? What are the patterns that we see? What happened here versus what happened here? What can we
Right.
do to improve? And how do we feed that back into the retrospectives for that continuous improvement you mentioned, Kumar, is something that we really have to keep in mind.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't know. One of the clients that I'm working with Michael, who can't be here today, we're actually doing a Scrum Master series, and we're spending a little bit of time every week exploring a topic that is relevant to gaining Scrum Mastery. And I like to think of Scrum Mastery as something that you don't actually truly ever master. It's something that's more aspirational in nature. Um, And I love being a Scrum Master. I mean, in fact, sometimes I wish I could go back to being a Scrum Master, just, sort of focused on nurturing and caring for a couple of teams at most, really helping them reach high performance in whatever it is that they do. And that should really be what organizations, companies strive for, is to provide their Scrum Masters with the tools and the support so they can really do their jobs and not burden them with 5 or 6 teams where they can't focus on things, the things that really matter. How are their teams doing? Do they have psychological safety? Are they focused on delivering value to the customer? How can the Scrum Master help them get there, through a data-driven approach and so on.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, and then the extra step that most companies are now moving towards is that they expect the Scrum Masters to be some kind of coaches as well. They want them to coach the teams on how to be a high-performing team. At the same time, having to take care of all the other things that used to happen at kind of the project managerial role, which is putting a lot of stress on that Scrum Master role and the people, especially who are new to it,
yeah.
right? To really kind of understand and be good at that craft that you were talking about, Kumar. So, give us some examples of what you are coaching, training these Scrum Masters on in that Scrum Master series.
Yeah, sure. I actually want to go back to a point you made, right? So, organizations that are giving all of this stuff to Scrum Masters to do. I think that's really the problem right there, is why Scrum Masters are stuck in the day-to-day and can't focus on continuous improvement and can't take a more data-driven approach, is because the organizations are living in this almost a schizophrenic world, right? One part of their brains is still sort of traditional, and they need all the traditional reports and the documentation and all the stuff, and they're used to having their project managers do all that and really sort of plan all the work out. And on the other hand, they're like, oh, we got to go agile, so let's just make these project managers Scrum Masters, and we'll be agile. And that's really the dilemma, is how to help organizations structure themselves in a way that allows Scrum Masters to be those coaches. That's another point you made. The Scrum Guide really thinks of Scrum Masters as being team coaches, and I think that's been lost to a certain extent in the industry, that that a lot of times Scrum Masters are thought of as the secretary, sort of the scribe at meetings, and the secretary that sort of organizes all the ceremonies and stuff like that. And the role is so much more important than that. And those are the types of things that we're doing in our Scrum Master series. It's really examining what is the role of a Scrum Master, and how can a Scrum Master new to the role, or maybe they've been doing it for a while, but they just haven't been able to do it the right way. What's the right way? It's does the organization give them the support they need to really coach their teams, and help them achieve high performance. And so those are the kinds of things we're doing in our sessions. We start with sort of a simple assessment, and we build on that to see where the Scrum Masters are in terms of this simple assessment. And then we talk about the stances of a Scrum Master, from being a servant leader to a coach, a mentor, a manager. In some cases, Scrum Masters are managers, but the thing is, what they manage is different, right? They manage the impediment escalation process, for instance, right? They manage the different tools that are being used, and ensure that people have the training and learning in order to use those tools. They teach. So these stances are kind of what we focus on. It's like, how can a Scrum Master be a great Scrum Master? By really mastering all of those stances. And I'm not going to bore you with all the stances, because there's many of them. But that's what we're doing, and we really hope to make this something that we can offer to people out, in the public, to really understand what it means to be a master at Scrum, and sort of improve their skills.
Yeah, this would be a great offering for the public domain and for private companies to elevate the game of the Scrum Master community. When you mentioned the true leaders who see this problem, it reminded me of a story a few years back. I met this person who was a Scrum Master manager. I don't know whether that
Mhm.
makes sense, but yeah, he managed a group of Scrum Masters, right?
Yeah,
And the same expectation game was following him as well, where the Scrum Masters were expected to do a whole bunch of things that the project managers used to do or the release managers used to do. Now it's all onto the Scrum Masters, but this Scrum Master manager was really smart in identifying maybe there are people in his community, in his group, who really just want to do the project management or the release
yeah,
management job. So what he did was he took away that Scrum role, that project management or release management activities away from the Scrum Masters and let the person who wanted to really do it. And now
right.
that freed up the Scrum Master community to actually just focus on their job of continuous improvement and taking their teams to that high performing level. And that group of Scrum Masters were the best in the company. I knew a lot of them, and I can vouch for every Scrum Master in that group who were really good at their craft and were
Yeah.
really improving their game.
That's a really good insight and a good point, because organizations can't just suddenly switch overnight to being an agile organization, whatever that is, right? These roles, they served a purpose for decades probably, and things work a certain way, and people expect things a certain way, and so it's really separating what the organization needs, what's of value to the organization, and then having people that sort of more gravitate to those types of roles do those things, and people that are more um, the natural Scrum Masters, the people that sort of rise to or are inspired by that type of work to be servant leaders, to be coaches, to be mentors, to be teachers, for them to sort of focus on those aspects of what an organization in transition is going through, and make sure that people have the support they need to do their work and do their job really well, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what we are in the the clients that we are supporting. We try to get people to sort of see the difference between project management and Scrum Mastery. And project managers, not that they go away, they still have a role to play, in my opinion. It's just the role is different. And I
Yeah.
mean, even the PMI has changed, right? The PMP is much, 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 much more agile now than it was when I got my PMP many, many
Mhm.
years ago. And
That was a
so,
long time ago.
yeah, it was a long time ago. I can't remember, at least 7 years or so,
Yeah.
8 years. And I have not renewed it. I probably should, but I know that they have made lots of changes to it to adapt to frankly, a changing world, right? And so project managers are very much more educated now about agile ways of working. And so it's really about, like you said, it's about what people gravitate to more.
Yeah, and the fact is that in many of these organizations, especially the big ones, these jobs haven't gone away.
Yeah,
The release management needs to be done. The risk management needs to be done. The staffing needs to be done. The budgets needs to be done. I mean, none of that work went away,
right.
somebody has to do it. And kind of figuring out who are the best people to handle that kind of work. Do project management make does project management make sense in that organization?
Yeah,
And we identify people who are, as you said, gravitate more towards that role, then let them do it. Let
yeah.
the Scrum Masters focus on the real task of getting those teams to a high performing state.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I wouldn't even characterize them as project managers anymore. The role has morphed and changed so much. They're at least in organizations that are moving to agile ways of working. They're more lean managers. Really trying to figure out, okay, where are the gaps, right? Because Scrum covers the three major roles, but there's so many other things that need to happen in order to release something to a production environment. So that's where these roles are really critically important, is to sort of shepherd the value to the customer as quickly as, especially for organizations that are in a transitionary state. They're sort of dual tracking how to create value and release that value to the public. So I definitely see a need for both.
Yeah, I'm very excited about what we are going to put out there in terms of content and workshops and enablers that organizations or individuals can leverage to improve this craft and be really, really performing be part of performing teams, high performing teams that is continuously looking for ways to improve.
I'll give you a little teaser. I mean, it's not just training, at least not the way, it's not a certification that we would offer. Certainly, it's a flipped classroom approach where Scrum Masters and people that are in more facilitated roles, like Scrum Masters, it's not limited to Scrum Masters, but certainly that would be probably the people that would be most attracted to this type of an offering, would consume some on-demand videos and do some assignments, and then it would be a sort of a mentorship call, at least probably once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, where we would cover these stances and how they manifest in daily work. And not only that, but we would give assignments for them to do while they're at work, so they can learn more about the craft of Scrum Mastery, right? Ideally with their team and also with their bosses, because I think Scrum Masters have a really important role to play in transformation. And if they are stuck in the day-to-day, not focused on continuous improvement, and not taking a data-driven approach to improving how their team operates, the organization cannot change, right? So Scrum Masters play such a critical role in transformation that they are the catalysts behind it.
Right.
So our vision is that we want to empower these catalysts to really, with the tools that they need in order to influence change in the organizations they work in.
Yeah, because you can have only so many coaches,
right?
I mean, that's not very scalable,
right.
due to the expertise available and also kind of the cost of it. You cannot scale the organization that way. The best way to scale your agile expertise in-house is to have the Scrum Masters who can really be leaders, as Kumar said, in being part of that transformation, being leaders in the transformation, and pushing the envelope for the teams and the programs continuously on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, and really, I mean, while it's a Scrum Master mentoring program, it's not just for Scrum Masters. It's for line managers, middle managers, product owners, anyone who facilitates anything for a team. It could be a way to really catalyze your growth as a change agent for that team, as sort of a servant leader for that team. So we hope to have it out here soon. We'll be making an announcement in the next few weeks for our first inaugural cohort, and we'd love for you to join us for that.
Really looking forward to it, Kumar. We hope that people are excited about it as much as we are.
Yeah, I certainly am. Yeah. Any tidbits to give folks that are watching this in terms of, well, how do you get away from the day-to-day grind, focus more on continuous improvement, and take a more data-driven approach? Yeah,
I mean, involve the team. I think that is the biggest message that I have. You cannot do it yourself. Yeah. If you try to do all of these yourself along with everything else you have, you're going to have a lot of work. You may not be sleeping and working on the weekends. So involve your team, get them excited about what is the path that we are taking, what continuous improvement means to them, and what the data that you're trying to develop really means for the team. You are not developing that outside of the team context. Team owns that data. So get them involved, make them part of the solution, and don't take everything on you. That's my biggest message for all the Scrum Masters out there.
That's good. That's really good. A good message that I hope you all will heed. And for me, I think part of the challenge for Scrum Masters that are stuck in the hamster wheel is too much WIP. Too much work in progress, too many teams. And so if that sounds like what you're facing, I would say try as much as you can to learn about what Scrum is all about and the Scrum Master role is all about, and talk to your boss. Frankly, you're in a very influential position, and I think if you can influence your boss to see the detriment to not just yourself as personally as a Scrum Master, scrumming for 5 teams or 4 teams or even 3 teams is a lot, but really to the teams. They're not getting what they need from you as a Scrum Master, and they don't know it, because they're like, okay, hey, great, I'm glad you're here, Jolly, and to help us with our Scrum meetings and stuff, but they don't know any better because they probably haven't seen any better. So
Right.
the detriment is really to the teams and ultimately to the organization. So, have courage, go talk to your boss, call us if you need help. Help you. All right. Any other final thoughts?
That's great, Kumar. Thank you. Thanks for coming on. I mean, this has been a great session. One of our Agile shots. We hope to see you next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, if you're interested in the cohort, the Scrum Master mentorship program, just leave us a comment below, and we'll give you more information about when we should have that ready to go. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you in a couple of weeks.